On February 8th, Disney had their quarter one earnings call, and oh my God, did they make some huge announcements. It wasn't just the, normal boring, profits this, losses that, but they actually made some pretty huge announcements that impact us in the parks. So, do you want to know what all those announcements are? Let's get into it. Hello, everybody. Welcome to The Treasured Guest. My name is Greg, and this is a show dedicated to all things Disney, including those guests called Treasured Guest. Now, when I say Treasured Guest, I do not mean in a good way. So whenever you hear the term Treasured Guest, just know that on this show. However, this week, everybody, we are going to get into the quarterly one earnings call for fiscal year 2023. So let's get into it, shall we? So Bob Iger opens up the earnings call saying that during his time, including his original time as the CEO of the Disney company, he said he had two significant transformations during his previous time. The first transformation was related to giving more creative control and authority to the creative businesses and departments that were under him, and the focus on great brands and franchises. And then that ultimately led to the purchasing of companies such as Pixar, Marvel, Lucasfilm. So that was one transformation. The second transformation he then goes into was by making Disney a true digital company. And the first part of that was purchasing 21st Century Fox. Now, I know at the time, it was 2016, when they purchased 21st Century Fox, there was a lot of flack from a lot of different investors and a lot of Disney fans saying, hey, look, whoa, this is way too much money for Fox. But in his vision, what he did is that he knew a couple years later, by launching Disney Plus, that he would have a large amount of content from the Fox library to add to Disney Plus. So he goes on to say that that was his second true transformation during his, previous tenure as the CEO. So those are his first two transformations that he talked about during his previous tenure as CEO. And then the third transformation that he would like to see that he went into, he kind of described it first before he went into it. So he said things that what he wanted to do was that with his time back, even though it's going to be briefly, what he wanted to do was, one, return creativity to the center of the company. He felt that creativity was kind of fractured or taken away. And the next thing is he wanted to increase accountability for those different departments that from the creative side and just the company in general. He wanted to improve results and ensure quality of people's experiences. He said that Disney has always been and always will be a storytelling company. So he wanted to improve the results and the quality of that storytelling, and that everything they do emanates from creativity. And he wanted to empower those with creativity and give them that more authority. So what he went into, which I'll kind of give into more detail, is he talked about this next transformation will be restructuring the company, which I will get into that. After kind of introducing the restructuring of the company, one of the first things he talked about was then cutting back and having to do 7,000 layoffs of Disney employees. So let's play a quick clip about that and what he had to say.
We will be reducing our workforce by approximately 7,000 jobs. While this is necessary to address the challenges we're facing today, I do not make this decision lightly. I have enormous respect and appreciation for the talent and dedication of our employees worldwide, and I'm mindful of the personal impact of these changes.
All right, everybody. So let's get into this presentation, this PowerPoint presentation for the earnings call. So I kind of want to just go over it. Now, I want to say here that I am no way, shape, or form a business person. Business is not my forte, never has been. However, I do like watching or listening to earnings calls because of the announcements that these CEOs like to make other companies, whether it's Bob Iger with Disney or somebody like Elon Musk. Like whenever there's an earnings call, some news is about to drop. And that's what these earnings calls are good for. However, with this presentation, let's kind of go over some of the things that they talked about. First thing is they kind of went over their key strategic priorities, reorganizing their leadership structure, implementing cost reductions, which is going to be some huge cost reductions coming up. They're working towards achieving both sustained growth and profitability. In their DTC stands for direct to consumer business. They want to improve the guest experience in their parks by providing more value and flexibility. They want to focus on significantly investing in their core brands and franchises, and they want to leverage their platforms to reach larger audiences to optimize the value of our content. So those are the priorities. They vaguely talked about some more than others. However, going back to the restructuring, so that, like I hinted at earlier, the biggest, probably right off the bat, the biggest thing that they announced was that they were restructuring the company. So instead of all these different divisions, they decided to restructure the organization. They said effective immediately, by the way, is that they're breaking down the Disney Corporation into three separate basic offices, as you will. So first thing is Disney Entertainment, which is the company's full portfolio of entertainment, media, and content businesses globally, including Disney Plus and Hulu. And that is co-chaired. So as you can see, it's the only department that is co-chaired. It is chaired by Alan Bergman and Dana Walden. So to kind of give you some background on them, this website Deadline did a pretty good news article on them. So Walden came over to Disney from Fox after the $71 billion acquisition, which is just crazy to me. It has been instrumental in a number of major wins for Disney during the past few years, including an Oscar win for Summer of Soul and the launch of ABC breakout comedy series Abbott Elementary and Hulu's hits such as Only Murders in the Building, Dope Sick, and The Kardashians. A lot of people are even actually talking about her maybe possibly being in the running to become the next Disney CEO. Would be the first female Disney CEO, if so. And a lot of people are rooting for her. So, I mean, we will see, right? Going into Bergman, so he was elevated to Disney Studios content chairman in December 2020, reporting to Chapek. He previously served as a co-chairman with Alan Horn starting in 2019. He has a 27-year career with Disney, in which he used to preside over creative production, marketing, and ops for Disney Studios content, including Disney, Walt Disney Animation, Pixar, Marvel, Lucasfilm, 20th Century Studios, Searchlight, and Disney Theatrical Production. He did serve as the president of the Walt Disney Studios for 14 years. He's known for his financial savvy when it comes to creative content, and Disney's track record has underscored that especially his theatrical has returned. Disney has led studios at the worldwide box office in 2022 with $4.9 billion. So, it is a possibility that Walden, can learn from Bergman's experience and maybe elevate her to become the next CEO. Who knows? Kind of speculating there. And then on ESPN, Jimmy Pitaro, hopefully I'm saying that right, that hasn't changed there. He's been the chairman of ESPN for a few years now. So the Iger obviously likes what he's doing over there. ESPN has kind of been the pit financially of Disney over the past few years, but Jimmy's done some things to make them actually profitable and to actually do things like Peyton and Eli and create like content like with like microphones like on pitchers or baseball teams and stuff like that. So there's a whole bunch of other like little technological advances ESPN has done under his reign. And then, as you know, I am a fanboy. Josh D'Amaro is now the chairman of Disney Parks, Experiences, and Products. So that includes now games and publishing businesses. So D'Amaro has it all. So if it has anything to do with a park or experience and it's a product and it doesn't have anything to do with entertainment, like, movies or Broadway or anything like that, Josh D'Amaro is the man, right? And, I talked about Josh D'Amaro on another episode. I can flag that here when he did his Disney Parks blog announcement and stuff like that. Now, I will also say that Josh D'Amaro said that even though the Disney company is laying off 7,000 people, he did send an email out to cast members saying that he does not expect any of those 7,000 layoffs to come from the frontline workforce, which I think is awesome. The frontline workforce are some of the most, they get minimum wage, barely minimum wage. If you're a Disney college program, you get less than that. So I think that's, kudos to Josh for hopefully not laying off any of the frontline cast members, which is good. Okay, so going on, they talk about their cost and the breakdown of how they expect to, between now and next year, have a cost savings because of the restructuring of $5.5 billion. $1 billion of that should come from at least this fiscal year, so no surprise there. They also mentioned that they are going to be cutting back on infrastructure in the parks. So I think by $250 million are going to be saved just by not upgrading the parks. Now, we don't know what their cost saving on that is. They didn't say, but they're also cutting costs back on there. And then they talked about their streaming model. And then they talked about the building a strong parks business model. So the parks have always been and always will be the most profitable part of the organization of the Disney company. So the thing that surprised me about this is that during the holidays and using the park reservation system, they cut capacity in the parks by 20%, and they were still able to make a profit, which I find is absolutely insane. Also, they increase their flexibility, they add value, they increase the availability of lowest price tickets. Bob Iger did say that previously, their lowest tier ticket level, it was only open for 15 days out of the year, and they extended it to 50 days out of the year. More access for annual pass holders and park hopper tickets, and select complimentary digital downloads on resort parking. I kind of talked about some of this in the Josh Tomorrow video. And then some of the new stuff that's coming out is obviously Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway opened in Disneyland at Mickey's Toontown. I do have a video. I will link that here if you want to see a ride through of Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway in Disneyland. Also, stay tuned because I'm releasing a video soon about all the Easter eggs that I found in Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway in the queue, especially at Disneyland. And then they're going to open up Tron and Moana Journey of Water over in Disney World. They got the World of Frozen in Hong Kong Disneyland and the Zootopia theme land in Shanghai Disney. All right, the next thing I want to talk about is, and this is excitement for stockholders, but he talked about how during COVID that they got rid of the dividend for their stockholders, right? And he said they are going to be bringing it back incrementally this year. It may not be that marginal of a gain, but that they are hoping to by the end of this year. So nothing to really do with you or me unless you're a stockholder. But if you are a stockholder, then let me know your thoughts. Are you excited about getting dividends back by the end of this year? Iger did say that at first the margins are going to be small, but to next year and beyond that, the dividend sharing can be higher. So if you are a Disney stockholder, let me know your thoughts down below. Next thing he talked about, the CEO succession board and how it's their top priority. I think he didn't say this during the meeting, but I think we all know that the transfer of power between Iger and Chapek could have gone better, right? I think if they would have put more thought and time into it, then they wouldn't be in this position that they are now. So they talked about the succession planning committee members. You can see him here. Mark Parker, who's the executive chair. He was the former CEO of Nike. Mary Barra, who is the chair and CEO of General Motors. Francis de Souza, who's the president and CEO of Illumina. And Calvin McDonald, who's the CEO of Lululemon Athletica. So the job of this board is to basically help assist in finding the next CEO, which I'm still predicting we're going to hear something by the end of this year. So I don't know, that might be on my end of year show. We'll see. All right, then they talked about their quarter one results for fiscal year 23. They compared Q1 22 to Q1 23. Revenues went up, everything else went slightly down, especially their diluted stock, but nothing that is too significant here. However, they did talk about some of these highlights, which surprised the hell out of me. I'm not going to lie. So Avatar Way of Water, let's get into that first. It's become the fourth biggest film of all time globally, with close to $2.2 billion earned at the box office to date. The fourth biggest film of all time. And you know what? Confession, I haven't seen it. And 3 out of the 4 members of the Take Warning Network also haven't seen it, which is surprising because we're some of the biggest nerd fans around, and only 1 out of the 4, 25% of us seen Avatar Way of Water. However, a lot of people around the world have, and it made so much money, made so much of an impact that Iger also said that they are going to be opening an Avatar attraction of some sort. Didn't give any details beyond that, but an Avatar attraction is coming to Disneyland. So, yes, you heard me right. An Avatar attraction in Disneyland. So, I don't know if they're going to make it as immaculate as Pandora over in Animal Kingdom, but they are going to make it in Disneyland. And then he talked about some of the Academy Awards with Black Panther Wakanda Forever having the success that it did. And then it talked about other things, so like especially with ESPN. He really praised ESPN this time around with their linear ratings, which linear ratings, to my knowledge at least, means that your basic like cable TV linear content. So not streaming, just like, you go home, turn on your cable TV and turn on ESPN. So those linear ratings went up 8% overall in this quarter, and 14% on their primetime lineup in this calendar year. And that the January's NFC wildcard game was Disney's most watched NFL playoff game on record. Oh, and then they won 9 total Golden Globes, more than any other entertainment company, including for Abbott Elementary, the first broadcast show to win a Golden Globe for Best Series. So kudos to them. That's a lot going on in one quarter, right? So kudos to them. And then what I wanted to get to here was Disney Plus, okay? So the first thing you might see on this is Disney Plus Hotstar subscribers That's not for us US folks, okay? That's in India and some parts of Asia. So that's totally overseas, right? However, they do kind of combine them to look at their avenue revenue per person there, and you could see that the Disney Plus course subscribers in America, they steadily go up, but the Disney Plus Hotstar ones did. They did lose some subscribers here, and that is because of increase to Disney Plus that they did in December. How do you feel about that? Are you, because they made it sound that, yeah, we lost some people, but it's no big deal. And they also mentioned that Disney Plus should be profitable by the end of FY24. So that'll make it 5 years, I believe, that Disney Plus will be out, which I think is what they projected how long it would take to become profitable anyway. But what do you think about the price hikes? And then they also introduced the Disney Plus with ads, which is a lesser, a lesser fee each month, but you have ads, right? So what do you think about Disney Plus and the subscription? Did it impact you? Are you mad about the prices there? And then also going on here for quarter one, Hulu. So Hulu and ESPN both saw an uptick in subscriptions, which I think is good. I personally am a subscriber to the bundle plan. I have Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN. Before, I didn't have Hulu, but I'm not necessarily against it. I like the fact that I can still watch live TV, especially with live sports, when needed. And, kudos to them for continuing to see profit, especially with ESPN, because like I said, for the past few years, ESPN has been nothing but like a money pit for Disney, and they haven't found out ways to make it profitable. And Iger still said during the call that still is a challenge, but they're making good progress. So we'll see what happens there. All right, Q1 parks, experiences, and products. So this isn't any shocker here. The Disney parks, like I said, are always the most profitable part of the Disney Corporation, especially in quarter one. So it's not a surprise. So what happens in quarter one? Think about it, right? So fiscal year quarter one is October through December, right? So what happens then in Disney parks? Well, you got the Halloween party going on, and the holiday parties going on, right? So there's a whole bunch of stuff, and it's also Christmas, New Year's, Hanukkah, all the other holidays, but those are always the busiest times of the year, and have special events and increased costs. And so it's no surprise that, especially in quarter one, that they're profitable. But check this out. In quarter one, 2022, they made $7.2 billion in revenue. Q1 2023, 8.7, right? That's huge. So that means that a lot of people are still going to the parks. And then also they talked about Disney Cruise Line with the addition of the Disney Wish. So that impacted their expenses a little bit because of the Disney Wish, but Disney Cruise Line overall was also able to experience profits and put more people on their ships. So what I want to do now is I want to play a clip from some Q&A that happened during the call, right? And on this one, someone asked Christy McCarthy if there's any one thing that contributed to the park's profitability and if she sees the trend continuing for this year. So let's check out what she says.
So Ben, great to hear your voice, and I'll address the parks question. So as I mentioned in my comments, we were really thrilled with the performance of parks in the quarter. There were no one-time items to call out, but the one thing I would mention is in previous quarters, we had mentioned that the recovery from the pandemic in our international parks was lagging domestic. And in this quarter, we had very strong performance, especially year over year, from Disneyland Paris. We had the opening of Avengers Campus over there in July, and that is incredibly popular and driving attendance. And we also have a new hotel that was actually an old hotel that was redone into the Art of Marvel. Again, very popular and attracting a lot of consumers to come out and experience that. The other thing I mentioned was the strength at our royalty stream from Disneyland in Tokyo. And the other thing not to forget is this quarter, our first quarter of the year, is seasonally one of our strongest when you look at it relative to other quarters. But the year-over-year comparison, it was an improvement, and we feel great about our business going forward.
All right, so I mean, pretty interesting straight up thoughts from Christy McCarthy, right? So the next part, like I said, they're going back and this is some of the things that they've done recently in the parks. I covered a lot of this on the Josh Tomorrow Said What video, so go check that out on YouTube if you want to go see it. But basically some of the things here is that, like I said, they expanded up to 2 months almost of their lowest price tickets in the parks. They're giving more flexibility with park hopper tickets, giving things away like, Disney Photo Pass digital downloads throughout the Disney 100, making select Magic Key passes available more frequently throughout the year at Disneyland. And then over in Disney World, they'll be adding more flexibility with annual pass holders to be able to visit the theme parks without a reservation on certain days and times, which is the weekdays, I believe. And they're now once again providing complimentary self-parking for guests staying at their resorts and hotels. And guests purchasing Disney Genie service will soon start receiving free digital downloads of their Disney Photo Pass attractions. So, like I said, I already covered that, but go check that out if you want to know more. And then they went into their upcoming theatrical stuff. I talked about, Avatar, The Way of Water, but he talked about how their upcoming releases for both movies and for content coming out like on Disney Plus is exciting, right? So Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, I'm stoked at that. That looks good. I think the past couple, like especially Phase 4, was a little right on the movies. Though I did love Thor: Love and Thunder. Nobody else on the Take One Network does. I did. I don't care. And here you go. Awesome, right? No, so anyway, I'm looking forward to Ant-Man and the Wasp, and then you got the next, and I'm not going to highlight all of these, but the next Guardians of the Galaxy, next Indiana Jones, the Marvels, which we'll see. I don't know, the Haunted Mansion movies coming out, and then this next part, like it's crazy. He just came out this out of nowhere, and he's just like, oh yeah, in our animation studios, we're going to come out with sequels to Toy Story, Frozen, and Zootopia. And you're like, what? So you're like, first you drop like an Avatar attractions coming, or Avatar Land, whatever, something Avatar is coming to Disneyland. And then you drop the sequels to those movies coming out. I thought Toy Story was, kind of on the decline and done. Hey, I mean, maybe Forky is more popular than people think. I don't see it as a surprise as sequels to Frozen, especially with the lands that are coming out in Paris. Oh, by the way, speaking of Paris, they praised Paris heavily for basically carrying on the profitability for the international parks. Talked about Shanghai, obviously wasn't open, during COVID for a lot of it. And, for the rest of the parks for Disney Paris to become more popular with that, and Adventures Campus over there, and the Marvel Hotel and things like that. So yeah, kudos to them. So, and now they're going to get a Frozen Land too, eventually. Frozen Land is opening in Hong Kong, I believe, this year. I'll show it here in a minute. And then Zootopia, not a shocker that, there's going to be a Zootopia. I love that movie, by the way. So anyway, and then coming up with more releases, this time on Disney Plus and Hulu. Some of these things are better than others. Obviously, Mandalorian Season 3 looks really good. Excited for that, if you can't tell by my Mandalorian helmet on the shelf over there. Ahsoka, I'm psyched for. White Man Can't Jump, like cult classic movie out of the 80s, 90s, right? And I'm not hearing good things about this one, so we'll see how that goes. Kardashians, I guess that's cool to somebody. I don't know, but even cooler than that for me is Loki Season 2. Loki was fantastic. If you have not seen Loki Season 1, after you watch this, don't stop now, but after you watch this video and you rate, comment, you subscribe, go see Loki. It's fantastic. I'm very excited about Loki Season 2. Peter Pan and Wendy, I haven't seen anything on that. And by the way, everything that's down here from Ahsoka down doesn't have any release dates yet. So we'll see. Maybe they'll come out this year. Maybe they won't. I'm assuming they will, because why would they release it on their quarter one earnings call if they weren't going to come out this year? But who knows? Things can change, right? And then X-Men 97 Season 1. All right. Now, who doesn't love the old X-Men, right? And then these are some of the things that are happening in their parks. I already kind of talked about some of it. So, you got Mickey's Toontown, you got the nighttime shows in Disney World, Happily Ever After, Epcot, Forever, and then you got Tron Light Cycle Run, which has already been running. They've been doing like cast member previews and testing and things like that. And then some of the other things too, World of Frozen, like I said, that's opening up in Hong Kong. The Journey of Water coming out, Journey of Water in Epcot. And then eventually they're going to reopen Tarzan's Treehouse in Disneyland, or Adventureland Treehouse as they're calling it. That thing, I don't know. The thing has been down for a while, and when I was just in Disneyland a couple weeks ago, it doesn't look like it's going to reopen anytime soon. So, but yeah, and then to be announced, Zootopia Theme Land in Shanghai, which I think is going to be phenomenal. And then that was pretty much it. Then what I'm going to do now is I want to, another stakeholder on the call asked Bob Iger a question about the parks have healthy growth prospects and what are the major growth drivers for the parks. Bob Iger said some pretty awesome information regarding this about, what they did with prices and what they've done to capacity and things like that. So I really want you to kind of take a look, listen. Maybe you got to, rewind it, listen to it again. I don't know. But I want you to definitely hear this response from Bob Iger.
Well, the answer is yes on the theme parks in terms of their growth. I'm very, very bullish about our parks. And not just because of the COVID recovery, but to start with, demand on the parks is extraordinary right now. Now, we could lean into that demand easily by letting more people in and by more aggressively pricing. We don't think either would be smart, because we let more people in is going to reduce guest experience. That's certainly not what we want. And in fact, if you looked at our results this past holiday season, we actually reduced capacity, certainly improved guest experience, and we're able to maintain not just profitability, but very, very successful or robust bottom line. We're going to continue to look at opportunities like that, which is essentially to simply get more creative in terms of managing the capacity that we have. I'm going to come back to that in terms of growth, but let me also address the pricing side. It's clear that some of our pricing initiatives were alienating to consumers. I've always believed, by the way, that accessibility is a core value of the Disney brand. We were not perceived to be as accessible or as affordable to many segments as we probably should have been. So after basically paying heed to what we were hearing, we started to address it, and the steps that we took were actually were very, very positive. We got really great reaction to it. In addition, and it's tied to this, is that we've put in place just basically more flexibility for the consumer in terms of how much it costs them to go. And interestingly enough, if you look at the increase of the core ticket at, say, Disneyland, it has not really increased that much, maybe slightly ahead of inflation over the last few years. But one of the things that was interesting to me in coming in and examining our pricing is we were making that available to people for only 15 days a year. So if you look at our new pricing strategy, we made it available for 50 days a year. And so we greatly increased accessibility to our lowest price. And it's really well received. So we're going to manage capacity very, very carefully. Some of that, by the way, has enabled us to essentially shift mix from annual pass holders to people who may come just once in a lifetime or once. They tend to be good customers of ours because of their per cap spending when they're there. That's really helpful. Some of the things that we put in place to manage basically annual pass holders was done to help us manage capacity without doing too much damage to the bottom line. Lastly, we have learned that when we invest in increasing capacity, the Star Wars lands would be a good example of that. Pandora was a great example of that. We can grow our business. In fact, if you look at the results when we put Pandora at Animal Kingdom, from year to year, they were stunning in terms of how many more people visited Animal Kingdom. I mentioned on the call that we're going to bring a version of Avatar to Disneyland. We have other opportunities as well. I've talked to Josh tomorrow about this very recently, like this morning, again, to really look at all the great franchises of the company and see where we can invest in them in the parks to increase capacity while preserving guest satisfaction.
So there you have it, talking about increasing guest capacity without ruining the bottom line. So and he talked to Josh tomorrow, today, or at the time of the call. I'm sure he talks to him every day, but how often are those meetings about, hey Josh, I want you to think about what we have as IP and what we can do with it, right? Something on IP too, intellectual property, by the way. So for you old school diehards of the parks, it doesn't look like that anything original is going to be made anytime soon, right? So gone are the days of the Pirates of the Caribbean well before the movies, or the Haunted Mansion, or Space Mountain, right? Everything now is going to be IP, and from here on out, it's going to have some tie-in to a movie or something, or a show, or a short on Disney Plus. Who knows? So the fact that he's talking with Josh about what IPs to bring in next is kind of surprising, right? And they talked about cost savings and cost cutting, but yet he's still having conversations about what they can bring into the parks, right? As you can see from the presentation, there's a lot of stuff that is coming. So I'm excited for that, right? Now, a point I want to make is that, us annual pass holders, whether it be Magic Keys at Disneyland or over in Disney World, what did you think about his comment there, right? Like, I think that's very Bob Chapek-ish, who didn't like annual pass holders because of their lack of spending in the parks, right? Catered to those people who are only going to do a once in a lifetime trip or a once every 5-10 year trip, right? Because they spend more. This is more of a special occasion to them. Their pocketbooks are a lot looser and they spend more, right? So I don't know. Was Iger kind of like jabbing us a little bit for us pass holder folk? I don't know. Let me know your thoughts below on that. I would definitely like to hear it and see. I think it could go either way. All right, everybody. So there you have it. I know this is a little bit longer of a show than usual, but there was so much stuff from the Avatar land to the success of streaming and Disney Plus and ESPN's not going away anytime soon and how streaming is Bob Iger's number one priority right now, which is still interesting, right? Even though the parks are always the most profitable, but there's still some love that he showed to the parks anyway, right? I mean, he talked about Avatar, something coming to Disneyland. He talked about the growth and evolution of the parks and improving the passenger experience. I don't think park reservations are going away anytime soon, especially since they did that as a point. Another point that I wanted to make in the aftermath of this earnings call is that the investor Nelson Peltz, who was kind of having like a one-on-one proxy war against the Disney board of directors and went on this whole campaign trail to try to become a Disney, board member, actually dropped his proxy war, so to speak, on CNBC today. So there's a lot of people who are very excited about this earnings call. For me, I was just excited about the announcements. I know Disney's always going to make money, right? And I'm not invested in them. So what do I care about the profits? However, I do care about what's going on in the parks and what they're doing, right? I'm not a fan of them laying off people, but they're not the only ones that are doing it. If you look at most of the Google, Amazon, Microsoft, a lot of those companies are laying off people right now too. So it's not surprising it's coming Disney's way. But kudos to Josh D'Amaro for, saying that none of those people will be from frontline cast members. I think that, yes, it sucks to have to lose people, but at least you're keeping your people who are making the least amount of money, right? So, that's good. So, what are your thoughts? Did you happen to keep up with any of the footage or any of the news stories or anything that broke out of this earnings call? What are your thoughts on anything I discovered here? I would love to see them down below. Please leave your thoughts, your comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, because this show's a little bit longer, I'm not going to do a treasure guest this week. So if you want to call me the treasured guest because I'm not bringing you a treasured guest, and for those of you guys who are new to the show, when I say treasured guest, normally what I do around this time is I bring somebody who is doing either bad things in the parks or is rude, arrested, kicked out, anything you name it. And these people are sometimes ironically called treasured guests by cast members in the parks, hence the joke, right? So anytime you hear the word treasured guest on this show, it's not a good thing, right? But I want to highlight these people in the hopes that none of these events are ever repeated in the future. But, check out future shows because trust me, I got a whole bunch of treasured guests lined up to give to you that some are going to be shocking. Some of them are not going to be surprising, but I want to highlight these guys. So never be a treasured guest in the parks. Always treat the cast members with respect. Be a respectful human being and a loving human being in the parks. And if you have a treasured guest that you've seen or a story that you'd like to share, let me know. This is all of our contact information here. Hit us up on social media. Hit us up on email or even on YouTube in the comments. I would love to share your treasured guest story on the show. So, be nice, be respectful. See you next time, everybody. This is Greg. Have a good one.